So the problem with Google Pixel is this. Only several countries has the official Google Store. So if you're not in these countries, tough luck. So I managed to get my hands on the Google Pixel 7a thanks to my fellow YouTuber friend Lim from Lim Reviews. So with that, I've got to live with it. Use it daily for 2 weeks to answer the question of is this really worth the $499 USD price tag? And we'll find out that if this is a better value compared to the flagship Google Pixel 7. Now when we're talking about looks, these two phones look very similar, almost like twins. Now you might see that the camera on the Pixel 7 is a bit bigger because of the larger black circle around the camera array, but that is if you really look very closely. Now the Pixel 7a is also missing the rear microphone and the LED sensor as well, and there's a slight difference on where the camera bar and the side rail meets, where the Pixel 7 is more seamless, but other than that, they look and feel the same. Now even though the Pixel 7 is supposed to be 3.5 grams heavier, but the difference is barely there, because we're talking about the difference of a small feather. I mean, who in the world will be able to tell a difference in the weight? Now the Pixel 7a is made of plastic, not glass like the Pixel 7, but that is not a bad thing since glass-backed smartphones are less durable, so the Pixel 7a has got your back, literally on this one. Now speaking of durability, the Pixel 7a has an IP67 rating instead of IP68, which is about the same rating, so no issue over here. Then Google has announced some cool new colors for this new Pixel 7a, which is charcoal, snow, coral, and this light blue color which they call Sea. Sea. Kinda makes me want to take a vacation, man. So in the end, when it comes to the build quality and the design, it is a little of a draw for me since the Google Pixel 7a doesn't feel like it has a low quality build. Now, remember when I said the Google Pixel 7 screen was just okay? Well, the Pixel 7a is the same story, but probably not as okay as the Google Pixel 7. Now it's got a slightly smaller screen of 6.1 inches compared to 6.3 inches on the Pixel 7. Now both phones can hit a 90Hz refresh rate, but oddly enough, Google has turned it off by default. So you'll need to toggle it in the display settings. Now I'm not sure why that is. Maybe Google doesn't want you to use it. Who knows? But here's a tip. If you're thinking of saving battery by sticking to the 60Hz display, I would say think again, because at times it can get pretty choppy, making your shiny new phone feel cheap. And trust me, it's not the best experience. Now the fingerprint sensor on the Pixel 7a does a decent job like the Pixel 7. It is not quite up to Samsung's ultrasonic levels of speed, but if you plan to use a fingerprint sensor if your finger is wet, well, good luck doing so. Then the Pixel 7a screen is an AMOLED panel instead of OLED on the Pixel 7a. And while technically AMOLED is better, but honestly it's not something that you would really notice unless you put both phones side by side. But one thing that really stands out when you put the phone side by side is the Pixel 7a has thicker bezels, which made it look like it was living in the past, pretty outdated looking for year 2023. So if you're someone who's all about the screen and wants the best of the best when it comes to having a better screen between these two phones, the Pixel 7 might be the way to go, but still the difference is minor to say the least, because I still feel overall that the screen quality on the Pixel 7 and the Pixel 7a is just decent at best compared to other flagship smartphones or even mid-range smartphones out there. Next, onto the cameras. Now here's where things get a little funny, because the Pixel 7a's cameras looks more buffed up than the Pixel 7 when it comes to the specs. It's got a 64 megapixel main camera compared to 50 megapixel on the Pixel 7, and even the ultra-wide and the selfie lenses have a tad more pixels. So it almost seems like they wanted to put this new camera arrays on the Pixel 7, and then they thought, new cameras, oh damn, not enough time. It's alright, let's just put it on the Pixel 7a when it comes out then. But as we all know, it's not just how many megapixels that the camera has, because image processing is what really makes or breaks the camera's performance. So is the Pixel 7a's camera better? Well, in all honesty, side by side, they are identical. Whether it's the ultra-wide, the main, the 8x zoom, or even the selfie camera, it's like looking in the mirror. Now, if you like the pictures from my Google Pixel 7 review, or if you have seen any Google Pixel 7 photos, then the Pixel 7a won't disappoint. It offers the same amazing dynamic range, and the overall image quality was really great as well. Now, this made me really happy knowing that Google did not compromise on the camera's performance on this Pixel 7a, even though it's supposed to be more of a mid-range or affordable lineup, because compared to other smartphone brands, they would usually cripple the camera performance for these non-flagship phones. Then as for portrait mode, well, still awesome. Whether you're snapping a picture of your friend, your cat, or even flowers as well. Now video quality also impressed me both on the ultra-wide and the main lenses, and even the image stabilization for the rear and the front 4K video recording were on point with great dynamic range too. However, the Pixel 7a is missing the cinematic blur compared to the flagships, but that did not matter to me because not only I did not use it, but knowing the fact that it capped at 1080p and the quality was just meh, it didn't bother me at all. Then the selfie photos perform like its flagship siblings, and the HDR performance is excellent, even when the sun is shining behind you, which was truly amazing indeed. Then the night side performs really well, producing great low light shots during at night. Now there's no macro mode, so that is fine by me because as long as there's no dedicated macro lens. But the good news is that you can get pretty close to a subject and get some really great close-up shots. Portrait mode at night was really great too, and once again to my surprise, the selfie images performed really well during low light, which means that you don't need 100 or 1000 megapixel selfie camera to make it perform really well. However, you can expect a little noise if you're taking videos under low light for the front camera, but the rear camera did perform pretty well when it comes to nighttime videos. So all in all, it's a draw for the cameras, and here's an audio recording and a video sample for a vlogging situation. Check it out and you be the judge on how it sounds. Alright, so this is a video and audio test. First impressions on the overall camera performance. It is very impressive, and dynamic range has been great. But of course, for this particular test will be based on how is it for a vlogging situation with the audio recording to see whether or not this particular Google Pixel 7a is a good camera or a good smartphone for vlogging purposes. So test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Let me know what you think of the sound at the description below. Comment section below. Alright, if you guys are finding this video helpful so far, do give this video a nice big thumbs up by hitting the like button, and a subscription would be very lovely too. Thank you so much in advance. And if you want a refresher of this review with a sample photos on a readable format, head on to our website at www.adamlobo.tv, or you can join our Discord server and flex your smartphone's camera. All the links will be in the description below. Alright, let's chat about my experience about the softwares on these phones. Now, if there's one thing that I've noticed using the Google Pixel 7 Pro, the Pixel 7 and now the Pixel 7a, where Google has really stepped up the game for each model where compared to their older phones. Google has been handing out software updates like a candy on Halloween, which is a big thumbs up for me. Now, the day-to-day experience with Android 13 on the Google Pixel 7a was a smooth sail. Features like live transcribe and voice recorder with its transcript feature were also still top-notch. And the Material You design user interface is still one of the best in the industry. And while Google is promising 3 years of software updates, which was great, but out of nowhere, Samsung is offering even more, which is weird since Android belongs to Google. And this is still a downside because if you're from a country that does not have the call screening feature, you're totally out of luck. And here's a head scratcher. Using Android Auto on this phone feels like it's just done a workout. It gets very warm, and it's just like the Samsung S23 Ultra and the Xiaomi 13 Pro and even OnePlus 11 when I was using these phones on Android Auto. Now, even though it's not really fair to blame Pixel for the heat issues during Android Auto use, but I've noticed that the Google Pixel 7 Pro does a way better job at keeping cool compared to the Pixel 7 and this Pixel 7a. Now, I still find this a little odd because all of the phones uses the same Google Tensor G2 chipset and the same 8GB of RAM variant when I tested all of these three phones. So in terms of software, it is still a draw again. Now, speaking of the Google Pixel 7 Pro once again, it was still better at gaming compared to the Google Pixel 7. So how is it better compared to the Google Pixel 7a with its latest software patches? So I've decided to test out gaming once again, only on Genshin Impact as usual. Starting from the Google Pixel 7, the game was smooth with no lag at medium graphics, 60 FPS with motion blur turned off. Now the phone did get quite warm about 15 minutes, and here's where there was quite a huge stutter during intense sessions in the game. However, on the Pixel 7a, even at the same settings, after 15 minutes of gameplay, it was still smooth and overall fluid compared to the Pixel 7, which was really surprising. Another head scratcher indeed, because I even decided to go even higher when it comes to the settings, and it still ran fine, but here's where the battery drained pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't know whether you want to call it a weird surprise or a good surprise, but it seems like the Pixel 7a is a better phone for gaming as of now. Now, as for battery, here's something that made me scratch my head. Yeah, I've been scratching my head a lot. I might be balding really soon. Because Google decided to give the 7a a slightly bigger battery than the Pixel 7, a 4385 milliamps compared to 4355. A very surprising twist, right? Well, wait till you hear how the battery does on each phones. Now on the Pixel 7, the battery life was just okay. I got about 5 hours and 10 minutes or so when I was using the phone daily, which isn't amazing, but given the phone's size, I'm not gonna throw a tantrum about it. And that was during dark mode turned on and me using it daily until I hit 9% battery. But the battery life on the 7a was, as usual, another head scratcher because I was only getting an average of 4.5 hours of battery life. So I guess size did not matter when it comes to the battery between the Pixel 7a and the Pixel 7. However, from a battery on a software's perspective, I love how Google calculates roughly how much battery is left according to the time of the day by just swiping from the top when you're viewing the notification menu, which I hope other smartphone makers does this too. But here's another puzzler because even though both phones uses the same power delivery 3.0 port, Google has put a speed limit on the Pixel 7a's wired charging at 18 watts, and although the Pixel 7a has wireless charging, a first for the Pixel A series, but it only goes up to 7.5 watts. I mean, come on Google, we are living in year 2023, not the Stone Age, my friend. So if you're choosing sites, I would say that the Google Pixel 7 edges out the 7a, not only thanks to its slightly better charging performance, but also better overall average screen on time when I was using it daily. In my Google Pixel 7 review, I shared about how the price tag and limited availability in countries without a Google store made it a bit of a hard sell. However, when it comes to the Google Pixel 7a, it's slightly a different story. Priced at $499 USD versus the Pixel 7's $599 USD. The Pixel 7a offers you one of the best smartphone cameras out there and the pure Google Pixel experience without really breaking the bank. So my money is on this Google Pixel 7a, and you know what? I would even choose this phone over other smartphones within the same price bracket. And meanwhile, check out my in-depth review of the Google Pixel 7 and the 7 Pro over here if you guys haven't seen those.